Okay, I hope my sound is good, and inshallah we will go ahead and start. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, salatu wassalam ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in, amma ba'd. I hope everyone is doing well and they're healthy during these very interesting and concerning times, and I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us the tawfiq to get through it. And that's, inshallah, precisely the goal of this particular week's talk. Looking at how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and our religion makes this particular situation that we are in now, what's called a waba or a ta'un, a epidemic or an illness that spreads and is quite dangerous, how our sharia has taken something like that and added a lot of gifts to it. And the reason why the sharia does that is obviously to give us hope, and also make sure we have a very optimistic outlook, and to remind us of who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is and His immense amount of care and mercy for us. So inshallah, I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tawfiq to do a decent job in trying to relay these ideas and these hadith to each and every one of you. And I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive and overlook my shortcomings and my incapabilities of doing a good job in explaining His words and the words of His Messenger alayhi salatu wassalam. So to start, what inspired this talk is an individual we mentioned last week, and that is Ibn Hajar, rahimahullah ta'ala. Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani, for those who don't know, he wrote and authored the greatest explanation of Bukhari, which is called Fathul Bari. Any Islamic library, this will be one of the key and one of the most important books and additions to an Islamic library. And he wrote other books, such as the Sciences of Hadith, which is probably the most adopted book when it comes to teaching the science of Hadith. And he also lived in a very interesting time, a very difficult time, and that is during the time what we call in English the Black Plague or the bubonic plague. Now, the bubonic plague, mainly, the epicenter was Europe, and it ravished almost all of Europe. But some of it did reach the Muslim world, such as Damascus and I believe Egypt as well, and Spain. So the Muslims did see a little bit of it, although it wasn't near the calamity and near the destruction that it gave to or did to Europe. Ibn Hajar was living during this time, and what happened was he lost 3 of his daughters because of that plague. And in response to that, he wrote this book he wrote a book called Badlul Ma'un fi Fadl al-Ta'un, giving up a little bit in order to earn the bounties and the virtues of a ta'un. A ta'un is a plague or a virus that really spreads at a massive amount and it affects a lot of people and is deadly at the same time. So upon learning about this book, I didn't know about this book prior to our current pandemic. Upon learning about it, I began reading it, alhamdulillah. It's a nice and interesting book, but I was just so inspired by his story that his tremendous loss inspired him to write a book so that Muslims after him can benefit from it. And he attempting to counsel himself and alleviate that grief that he is feeling, he wrote a book in which he looks at the idea of ta'un and how the Sharia approached it, what it means, how our Prophet ﷺ taught us about this concept, as well as the virtues that come with those who endure one, which inshallah we'll get to. Also, another quote that inspired me for this topic was a quote by Hassan al-Basri rahimahullah ta'ala, in which he's talking about zuhud, the concept of asceticism, where a person is more centered, their life is more centered around the afterlife than it is for this life. Their primary goal is to reach the next life, and they will cater all of their lives to focus on that, and they'll also utilize all of their well-being and their worldly possessions in order to achieve that goal. And Al-Hasan al-Basri rahimahullah ta'ala says something very profound, and as we go through this, I understand that it's easier said than done. However, it is achievable. Any one of us can achieve that, And sometimes it doesn't take more than just contemplating the text, our scripture, and the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ to realize how much the Sharia is helping us out. So Al-Hasan al-Basri rahimahullah ta'ala says that part of asceticism, part of zuhud, is that whatever comes to you, whatever qadr Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decrees for you, then you accept it and you embrace it in a way or to the extent that you don't wish for something else. And he mentions both sides of the spectrum, the good. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed you with some good, then that is the qadr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you use that towards your next life and your well-being in the next life. Also, that if you are tried with a calamity or with a hardship, you don't wish that it never occurred, or you don't wish that you don't wish that what you lost or what you couldn't do during this calamity, you don't wish that you would have rather done that. So, for example, what we're going through now has confined us to our homes. It's severely limited our ability to wander this earth freely. However, what Hasan al-Basri rahimahullah ta'ala is saying that this is what we are in now. What we could have been doing if this didn't happen would have been, for example, we'd go out, we'd go to recreations, we'd entertain ourselves, we'd visit family members, we'd work, whatever it may be. Hasan al-Basri rahimahullah ta'ala is saying that what we are enduring now becomes more beloved to us and more something we favor more than doing those things that we could have done. So this is very inspiring, and it's interesting to kind of tweak out the way we look at the world, we look at the events in our lives in order to help us really appreciate and deal with what we are going through. And then a third quote, or a second quote that really inspired me is a quote by Abdul Qadir al-Jilani. Most people know who Abdul Qadir Jilani is, but for those who may not know, Abdul Qadir is a spiritualist that is revered amongst all Muslims, and he is very much quoted even by the top scholars. So Abdul Qadir Jilani rahimahullah ta'ala was asked by one of his students, he says that, as we mentioned last week, calamities can mean one of three things to a person. It could be a punishment, and it could be a expiation of sins, or it could be to raise a person's ranks in the next life, even in this life as well. So his student asked him, Abdul Qadir, how can we differentiate what this calamity means to me in particular? He said that if your hardship is taking you away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's harming your iman, then it's a punishment. Or if it's damaging so much to where the person turns away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that is a punishment. If the calamity is bothering the person, they feel the pain and the troubles of it, but they are patient, that is expiation of sin. And then if the person accepts it, embraces it, and is looking forward to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala promises the person who deals with it and goes through it, then that is a person Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is raising their ranks. So this quote, inshallah, I hope it can kind of give us a framework by which we understand the rest of tonight's talk, that our goal is to be among those who see this test and this hardship as something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala means to be a source of rahmah, as the hadith will mention. And as the title of this talk is Coronavirus and the Gifts of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to the Believers. So I will mention three gifts which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala promises us or offers us during these hard times. And the first gift, and by far the most prominent, and this doesn't necessarily have to be unique to coronavirus, the first two gifts are general, but without a doubt they are very beneficial for us in our current times. And the third one is specific to the coronavirus. So the first gift is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself. He is the greatest gift that we have, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is here for us. He sent messengers to us, and He sent down revelation to teach us how to seek assistance from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and to understand how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala presents Himself in our lives, and how He shows us his presence and his what is called in the Arabic language ma'iyyatillah subhanahu wa ta'ala, his nearness to us. And to kind of put a little bit of depth to this topic, I want to refer to a question an individual, I saw this on YouTube, and it's a very interesting question. I think it would do us good to reflect on. This individual poses a question to one of the da'is that's well known, and he says that, you know, it seems like he's very much in stress. You can tell from his tone he is angry, he's upset, he's confused, and he's trying to find the truth. But at the same time, there's an amount of frustration that brings out a type of negative anger in his tone and the way he's approaching the topic. And he says the following. He studied Islam, he's looked at the verses of the Quran, and he came to the conclusion, and based on his conclusion, he's asking the question, seeking clarification. He says that, you know, God created us, and He made us responsible for our actions, and we are responsible to the extent that there is accountability. There is reward and there is punishment, and it's severe reward, and I mean it's plenty of reward, and it's severe punishment. Yet at the same time, when you look at hadith, when you look at the verses of the Quran, it seems like most people are going to fail this test. So the question is, why would God, the one who claims He's the most merciful, the most benevolent, create a creation, put us in a situation where He knows that most of us are going to fail? Why would He do that? Now this is a powerful question, but the answer is actually quite simple. And perhaps we know it, but we don't appreciate it. And that is the following. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala didn't create us to fail. Quite the contrary. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us all the tools that we need to succeed. It is us who fail in using those tools for that success. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us our faculties. We hear, we see, we have a mind, we understand, we learn, we have language. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created an entire universe that is representative and indicative of who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is. And so many verses in the Quran point to nature. Look at nature. Isn't that enough of a sign that there is a creator, and that creator is one subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that He is worthy of worship? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent prophets and messengers to remind us. And He sent down revelation that remains after these messengers to guide us. And on top of all of this, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is there with a direct relationship to us. We have direct access to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to ask Him for anything that we want. So how can we fail? And this is, you know, to go to a hadith that's known, the Prophet ﷺ says, everyone enters paradise except those who refuse. So the companions were confused and say, Ya Rasulullah, who would refuse paradise? And his response was, those who refuse me, they reject me. So the Prophet ﷺ actually presents the issue in the opposite manner than this individual understood it. Everyone succeeds except those who choose not to succeed, except those who turn away from all of these realities. And you know, to add one more thing, وَمَا كُنَّا مُعَذِّبِينَ حَتَّى نَبْعَثَ رَسُولًا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not punish a people or a person until He sends them a messenger. He gives us the benefit of the doubt. So the only people who enter hellfire are those who know the truth, understand it, and reject it. And they reject it so much so that even if every single sign, miracle comes to them, even if they speak to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala one-on-one directly, and they see hellfire in front of them, what does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say? وَلَوْ رُدُّوا لَعَادُوا لِمَا نُهُوا عَنْهُ وَإِنَّهُمْ لَكَاذِبُونَ. You know, if they were to be sent back to this earth after seeing the Day of Judgment, after seeing hellfire, after speaking to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they would go back to their own ways. So whose fault is it? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us and gave us all the tools, and the best tool is He Himself subhanahu wa ta'ala, a direct link, a direct connection to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that there is no interference, there's nothing blocking it, there's absolutely nothing that could block it. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is available 24/7, as we say in our common tongue. So when you look at all of this, you find that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the greatest gift He gave us is Him Himself, is He Himself, that He is there to help us in any test. We are going through a calamity, And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that I am here to help you in your calamity. And that is, any Muslim will know that this is enough. To feel that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is here to assist me, He is here to protect me, He is here to get me through this, is in of itself the greatest tool for success. So, as this individual, he misunderstood this reality. He misunderstood that we have access to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it is about us taking advantage of that. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in many verses says that He sends down these calamities, these tests, these punishments, لَعَلَّهُمْ يَتَضَرَّعُونَ, so that they humble themselves and they express their weakness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in dua. And if we do that, no, it's not going to create some sort of miraculous change in the world overnight. Yes, it's possible. It is possible that an individual makes dua to Allah and Allah answers that individual's dua and changes the situation. But, that would be in a very rare situation. Allah is capable of all things, but, He has a reason and a purpose and a goal, a result that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala means to bring about this calamity. However, dua in of itself, even if we don't see the direct or an immediate answer and manifestation of our dua, at least it gives us a type of consultation, a type of reassurance that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is here for us. He didn't put us in a test and say, okay, deal with it. You and yourself, you're on your own. Rather, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, okay, here's something very simple. I'm here to help you. What do you need? So that is the greatest gift. And there's several verses that I'd like to share with you, perhaps that it can give a little bit more depth and reassurance to our minds, to our hearts, inshallah, so that we can ease our pains and get through this situation in a manner that, inshallah, brings us out better than when we entered it. So one verse I'd like to share is actually that of Musa alayhi salatu wassalam. Musa, when he first met Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the fire, you can imagine that you by a fire, and it's a strange fire, and a voice starts speaking. Oh Musa, I am Allah. Do this and do that. It's not expected that Musa alayhi salatu wassalam immediately accepted and said, oh, okay, this makes sense. No, he probably was a little bit confused. In fact, maybe extremely confused. And then when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told him to throw down his stick and it turned into a snake, what did Musa alayhi salatu wasalam do? He said, he ran away. He ran away without even looking back. Right? And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told him, أَقْبِلْ وَلَا تَخَفْ إِنَّكَ مِنَ الْآمِنِينَ. And in a verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَضْمُمْ إِلَيْكَ جَنَاحَكَ مِنَ الرَّهْبِ. Put your hand by your chest, by your heart, and it will ease your fear. Now, we know, I'm sure each and every one of us has gone through a situation that it really took their heart. It captured their heart in a way that brought them a lot of fear, a lot of concern, a lot of stress, anxiety. Now imagine all of a sudden, something just completely eased all of those worries and those concerns to where your heart finds peace, rest, and reassurance. Now if something like that were to happen to us, it cannot be, as Muslims, we will see that this is something coming directly from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, a sakina, a dua that someone made for you or you made yourself, or Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as He did for Musa alayhi salatu wassalam. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can help us deal with our fear and uncertainty and our anxiety, the way He helped Musa alayhi salatu wassalam by easing his fear and his concern and his confusion. So by reaching out to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, saying, oh Allah, calm my heart, bring me tuma'nina, bring me sakina, tranquility, peace of mind, peace of heart. Oh Allah, provide me with the reassurance that will give me the patience and the certainty to get through this time. So that's one thing that we can do. In another verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَقَالَ رَبُّكُمُ ادْعُونِي أَسْتَجِبْ لَكُمْ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, call upon me, make dua to me, and I will answer your call. And in another verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَإِذَا سَأَلَكَ عِبَادِي عَنِّي فَإِنِّي قَرِيبٌ أُجِيبُ دَعْوَةَ الدَّاعِ إِذَا دَعَانِ فَلْيَسْتَجِيبُونِي وَلْيُؤْمِنُوا بِي لَعَلَّهُمْ يَرْشُدُونَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that if someone asks about me, then tell them I am near. I am near to each and every one of you, Muslim or non. Anyone who calls on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah is near to them. Why? Because His bounties are endless. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wasn't meant to be for some people and bars off other people just because. Anyone who calls upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will hear, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will hear them, and He will answer them sooner or later. So when we make dua, when we utilize the tool of dua, and it is the tool, the weapon of the believers, what that does is, as I was mentioning before, it brings Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala closer to the heart. It gives this feeling that, oh my God, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Lord of the universe, the greatest, the most grand, the Almighty, His Majesty subhanahu wa ta'ala, I can contact Him directly in my heart, immediately, and I can wait for a response because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is capable of doing all things. You know, when you ask someone for a favor, you might say, oh, maybe he'll do it, maybe he won't do it, maybe she'll do it, maybe she won't do it, because we understand that human beings are limited in what they can offer and their capabilities. But when we make dua, and we make a lot of dua, it brings this type of nearness, relevance to the person's heart of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And even beyond, after this current pandemic, I hope people will do this more. And the Prophet ﷺ says that ad-du'a huwa al-ibadah. Dua is the soul, it's the essence of worship. Why? Because it demonstrates our relationship with Allah and Allah's relationship with us. So when we make dua, we are indirectly saying, oh Allah, I need you. Oh Allah, I am weak. Oh Allah, you know, I can only do so much. I'm vulnerable, I'm fragile. And that is the reality. The more we see our weaknesses, the more we look for those who will make up those weaknesses. Someone or something to depend on. And for us believers, it's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's our relationship to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah, He shows us His relationship to us by answering that. I mean, I'm sure we all have an example where we made dua and that dua was answered. Now, think about that. You called on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and He answered you. Now, the more we make dua, the more answers we're going to get. And the more answers we get, the more near we feel Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The more we feel that Allah is near to us, He's relevant to who we are and our needs and my particular situation. So, going through this epidemic, you know, people, I'm sure the amount of dua that they are doing has increased. It's by default. That's how we human beings are. When we are going through difficulties, we reach out. So, one of the gifts that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is showing us, you know, He Himself is this gift. He's showing us that He's here for us. You know, we forget. We become too distracted by our daily routines. We become too negligent of, you know, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's rights. So He sends us a test like this, and He reminds us of His presence. He reminds us that He is here for us to help us out in our daily lives, in our situations. You know, not just in an extreme one like this, but in everyday life. So this is a very big gift that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving to us. We need to take advantage of this gift. In another verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِنَّ اللَّهَ مَعَ الَّذِينَ اتَّقَوْا وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ مُحْسِنُونَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is with those who are conscious of Him and with those who do ihsan, who are excellent. And in another verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَالَّذِينَ جَاهَدُوا فِينَا لَنَهْدِيَنَّهُمْ سُبُلَنَا وَإِنَّ اللَّهَ لَمَعَ الْمُحْسِنِينَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in these two verses, the first one is the last verse of Surah Al-Nahl, and the second one is the last verse of Surah Al-Ankabut, the 29th chapter. In both of these verses, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that He is with certain people. And the verse of Surah Al-Nahl, He's saying that He is with those who are people of taqwa, those who are conscious of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, in a time like this, I'm sure dhikr of Allah has gone up. Our consciousness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has gone up. And essentially what that does is that it brings us closer to Allah. I mean, what greater gift can we ask for than the Almighty to be close to us and for us to be close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the one who can change a person's situation from the darkest of dark to the brightest of bright, the one who can take someone out of the deepest forms of depression and make them among those who reach the highest levels of sa'adah, of happiness and contentment. The one who can take someone who is ill and give them health and a longer life. The one who could take a person out of the darkest and most dire of situations and allow them to be free of that and live a life of safety and security and provisions and welfare. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is with the people of taqwa, and this is something Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is doing for us. We are increasing our taqwa in these hard times so that we have a more near relationship to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And He mentions ihsan, excellence, which I'll get to in a second. The second verse, Surah Al-Ankabut, وَالَّذِينَ جَاهَدُوا فِينَا لَنَهْدِيَنَّهُمْ سُبُلَنَا وَإِنَّ اللَّهَ لَمَعَ الْمُحْسِنِينَ. This is one of my favorite. In fact, these two verses are perhaps my favorite verses in the Quran. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, and those who strive in His cause. Now, Surah Al-Ankabut is a Meccan chapter, so jihad of the sword still hasn't been prescribed. And therefore, it is assumed that this form of jihad is jihad of the self. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is here saying that those who strive in the cause of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in their self, they struggle for His cause, they are patient with His qada and qadr, with what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decrees for us. Those who are patient in that regard, and they continue to adhere to His commands and the commands of the Prophet ﷺ, despite the inconveniences, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to provide that person with guidance. Guidance. The greatest tool that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us. The Quran was sent down to guide us. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent the messengers to guide us, so that we have this tool of guidance where we know what to do in every situation. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala shows us that this is good and this is bad, this is right and this is wrong, this is halal and this is haram, the tool of guidance. So now when Muslims are struggling to deal with the current circumstances, they are trying to learn the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ and how we deal with this current situation. They are doing jihad of the nafs. When they increase their dua, when they increase their dhikr, when they increase their good deeds in order to battle our situation. Also those who go beyond the spiritual and they do the actual, the physical, like those in the medical profession, the medical field, and the researchers trying to understand this, those who are trying to organize these situations. It's all jihad. We are striving for a particular cause, and that cause happens to be the decree of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, His qadr. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that we guide them to our path. Again, like the previous verse, it's showing us how the situation is bringing us closer to Allah and bringing Allah nearer to us. Because the more we strive, the closer Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is to us, the stronger that ma'iyya is of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And notice how both verses end with muhsinin. وَإِنَّ اللَّهَ لَمَعَ الْمُحْسِنِينَ وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ مُحْسِنُونَ إِحْسَانًا. During these times, it is an open season. It is like a Black Friday of good deeds. So many opportunities to do good deeds. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala opens these venues, and what you find is that there's always a very strong response. So when we do these acts of ihsan, when we put ourselves in harm's way in order to help someone, so many people are contacting the elderly, those who are without family here, those who are ill, saying, stay home, we will take care of you. Anything you need, just let us know. And even though that person might not necessarily need it, the gesture in of itself is an act of ihsan, right? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has opened doors of good deeds so that it brings us even further closer to us. وَإِنَّ اللَّهَ لَمَعَ الْمُحْسِنِينَ. So many ways Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving us opportunities to come closer to Him in a way that if this weren't to have happened, that closeness may not have come. Continuing, in another verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَبَشِّرِ الصَّابِرِينَ الَّذِينَ إِذَا أَصَابَتْهُمْ مُصِيبَةٌ قَالُوا إِنَّا لِلَّهِ وَإِنَّا إِلَيْهِ رَاجِعُونَ أُولَٰئِكَ عَلَيْهِمْ صَلَوَاتٌ مِّن رَبِّهِمْ وَرَحْمَةٌ وَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْمُهْتَدُونَ. And those who, and give glad tidings to those who are patient, like us. The amount of patience that we have to endure is incredible right now. I mean, we as human beings, we hate to be confined. And this is part of our nature. Adam alayhi salatu wasalam, why did he eat from that tree? Why? There was a trillion other trees. millions of other trees that he could have ate from. Why did he eat from that tree? Ibn Qayyim rahmatullah alayhi and other commentators say that we just don't like being confined, and therefore that which we are restricted from becomes more attractive, and it requires a lot of patience. So Ibn Qayyim rahmatullah alayhi is saying that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made that test of Adam a model for us to let us know our nature, so that we take heed, so that we learn how to better engage the world. So being confined requires a lot of patience. And if you have kids, ya habibi, as they say in Arabic, it requires tons of patience. It requires a lot of patience. But inshallah, in that is good. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, give glad tidings to those who endure that. And in other words, to put it in kind of common tongue today, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that you're on the clock. You are getting paid for your inconveniences. Just like an employer, if their employee has to travel for that company, they'll give them bonus, they'll give them pay for that. Likewise, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that your inconveniences, you'll be paid for that. You will be compensated for that, as we'll get into later towards the end of the talk. So give glad tidings to them. Every moment we sit in our homes and we think, oh, I could have been doing this, I could have been doing that. Remember, you're on the clock. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving you reward for your endurance and perseverance. Those who, if a calamity befalls them, as a calamity has befallen us, they say, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. This phrase requires a talk in of itself, and perhaps maybe in a future week we can go over that. But in some, it's a phrase that brings consultation to the mind and to the heart, saying that we belong to Allah and we will return to Allah. There's a lot to say there, but for the sake of time and to stay on topic, we'll keep that for another time. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that those who say this phrase, when a calamity befalls them, upon them is praise from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and mercy, and those are the guided people. So our patience for our times and our saying inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un, which scholars say that anytime you think of a calamity, whether it's continuous, you are currently enduring it, or it's something in the past, then you can say inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Anytime you remember, you're looking at the news, you remember our current situation, then say inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un, and you will continue to get the bounties and the rewards which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is promising here. He says that you get praise from Allah. I mean, think about that. When you say this, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala responds to your call. He responds to your heart, to your hurt. He responds to your pains and praises you. And He sends down His mercy. And we know when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala opens His mercy, it never closes. As He says subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah Fatir, الحمد لله فاطر السماوات والأرض جاعل الملائكة رسلا أولي أجنحة مثنى وثلاث ورباع يزيد في الخلق ما يشاء إن الله على كل شيء قدير ما يفتح الله للناس من رحمة فلا ممسك لها. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala opens a door of mercy, no one can close it. And that's how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is. If He opens a door of mercy for you, then it will never close. Because Allah is the most merciful. He is the embodiment, the manifestation of mercy. And He is the source of mercy. And any mercy that we see in this world is sourced in Him subhanahu wa ta'ala, is a branch of that. So when we say this, imagine all the mercy that's coming down upon us that we wouldn't have had if it were not for this situation. And they are guided people. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also blesses them with guidance, as we mentioned earlier. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in another verse says, وَاصْبِرْ لِحُكْمِ رَبِّكَ فَإِنَّكَ بِأَعْيُنِنَا. Be patient for the decree of your Lord. Right? We are currently enduring the decree of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the judgment of Allah. So be patient in that. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling the Prophet ﷺ, he was going through years of hardship. This is a Meccan verse. He's dealing with the oppression and the persecution of Quraysh. He's dealing with the slander and the belittlement and the mockery and the lies and accusations opposed against him, alayhi salatu wassalam. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, be patient with what Allah has decreed, meaning it is part of the decree of Allah that He allows these things to happen. He's not pleased with it. He didn't tell them to do it, but He allowed it to happen because it brings about a greater good. There is a result Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is pushing humanity towards, and inshallah that will come about. So be patient for the decree of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. فَإِنَّكَ بِأَعْيُنِنَا. Right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't say, okay, be patient, deal with it. Rather, He gives us the tool to help us process and bring ease to our hearts during our times of difficulty. فَإِنَّكَ بِأَعْيُنِنَا. We are watching you. We are looking at you. We are caring for you in your times. And this plays into the next verse, فَإِنَّ مَعَ الْعُسْرِ يُسْرًا إِنَّ مَعَ الْعُسْرِ يُسْرًا. A very beautiful verse. Indeed, with every hardship is ease. Indeed, with every hardship is ease. What this verse is saying is that when a hardship comes down, there are at least 2 eases in your life that are already there. In other words, those 2 eases are from Allah, and He made those 2 eases a source of help from Him for you to deal with your hardship. How so? We're dealing with coronavirus, right? We are in a type of lockdown. People are not going out, and we're being confined to our homes. That's difficult. But you know what? We have enough room in our homes to stock up for a month. Imagine if that wasn't the situation. We have the luxury of distancing ourselves socially to protect ourselves even more. And that is a type of ease Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us in order to protect us and help us through our hardship. Another one is the financial stability. Alhamdulillah, we have the financial means as well of buying enough produce, buying enough items and products for our homes to deal with our situation so that we don't have to keep going out. That is an ease that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us to help us with our hardship. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is always there. He is there in every single thing that we go through, especially in the hardships. It's about us recognizing how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is helping us so that we can appreciate Him more subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we can also feel that consultation and bring that ease to our hearts. It's there, but we're not looking for it. Look at how many eases you have in your life that is making your current situation easier for you. And remember, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who gave us those things to let us know that He is there with us. He doesn't just leave us. Next is a hadith by Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu, which is narrated in Bukhari and Muslim in different variations, in which the Prophet ﷺ says, "Ma anzal Allahu da'an illa anzala lahu dawa." Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not send down a illness except that He also gives it a cure, a remedy. That is also a help from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Meaning Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't just put us there to perish. He doesn't just leave us there to just die. Rather, He gives us the means to deal with it. And remember, that is from Allah. Look at the wording. إِلَّا أَنزَلَ لَهُ دَوَاء. Except that He sends down a remedy, a cure for it, to let us know that He is there, He's helping us. And in a quote, in a hadith, which is narrated also in Bukhari and Muslim, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that, in a hadith Qudsi, the Prophet ﷺ says that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala every night comes down in the last third of the night and says, "Who will make dua to me so I answer them? Who will ask me so I give them? Who will ask me for forgiveness so I forgive them?" This is another way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is showing His help to us. He's showing us that He is here for us. He is showing us that He did not leave us to perish, to suffer alone. Rather, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is here every single second. It's just about us putting our hands out and taking advantage of it. This is about us recognizing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is there every moment, every instance of our lives. Will we then not seek that assistance? If someone, you're going to a test You're going to the MCAT, one of the most difficult, if not the most difficult test in our country. We're going through that, and on the conditions, it says that you are allowed to bring a medical professor, a medical expert to help you out on the test. Will we not take advantage of that? And if we take advantage of that, what is going to be the result? Success. Therefore, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that He is there for us, He is there with us. You have all the means, and take advantage of it. So that is the first gift, and that is the gift of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He Himself. The second gift, and this is also very, very reassuring, and that is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala replaces anything you lose. Anything a person loses, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala replaces it. And a quote states the following: مَبْتَلَاكَ, meaning مَبْتَلَاكَ اللَّهُ إِلَّا لِيُعَافِيكَ وَمَا مَنَعَكَ إِلَّا لِيُعْطِيكَ وَمَا أَمَاتَكَ إِلَّا لِيُحْيِيكَ. This is very beautiful. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that, in this quote, it says that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not test someone except to give them afiyah, to give them a type of alleviance, a type of protection afterwards. Meaning, ibtila, the concept of ibtila is to expose something that is already there. And ibtila does not bring about something new. And think about this. An ibtila exposes something that's already there. It doesn't bring about something new. It doesn't introduce something new to a person's life. Therefore, to give an analogy, when the body feels pain, it is exposing a problem that's already there. Likewise, an ibtila is exposing a spiritual deficiency, a spiritual illness that's already there. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tests us, puts us through a hardship in order to expose that so He can purify that for us. Now, when you look at spirituality, in my opinion, is the means, the way to happiness in this life and the next. It is the source of happiness in this life and the next, because it engages all of our emotions and disciplines them in a way where it works to our advantage and gets us to contentment in this life and the next life. However, when a person is suffering from spiritual illnesses, from spiritual deficiencies, it creates these type of illnesses that really strain and drain a person from living a satisfying life. And I don't mean satisfying life in terms of entertainment and fun and all of that, but I'm meaning an emotionally satisfying life. A life full of contentment, that you wake up in the morning and you don't feel like you wake up every morning feeling that I'm okay, I am doing well, and I am going to be okay. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is testing us now. He is putting us through this hardship, through this calamity, in order to expose a lot of problems. Whether it's at the individual level, the family level, the communal level, He exposes it so that He purifies us from it. And that's how the ibtila works. وَمَا مَنَعَكَ إِلَّا لِيُعْطِيكَ Ya Allah. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't prevent you from something except because He wants to give you. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prevents something from reaching you, if He takes something away from you, it's because He wants to give you something better, because you are worth more. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows that there is something better for you, more pleasing for you, more satisfying to you. And if we remain with what we have, or we seek that thing that we want, then we will take something that is lesser when there's something that is superior. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took a lot of things away from us, and there are many lessons there. But He took it away from us in order to give us something a lot greater. Now, most of our minds today will go through the worldly stuff. Oh, I'm going to get some more money or something like that. And you know what? That is part of it. But there's something even greater than that. Allah took away a lot of our freedoms, a lot of our abilities, to remind us of Him, to give us Him, subhanahu wa ta'ala, to build that relationship with Him, so that when this epidemic subsides, when the virus dies out, and we go back to our daily routines, we will go back charged with love and iman, with love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and iman, with a type of commitment that revives and rejuvenates our hearts and our minds. It brings us a type of a taste to life that we weren't tasting before, a type of beauty to life that we weren't enjoying before. And this is just the beauty of this life before the next life. وَمَا أَمَاتَكَ إِلَّا لِيُحْيِيكَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't put us through death except that so that He can revive us back to Him subhanahu wa ta'ala. And in a verse in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَمَا أَنفَقْتُم مِّن شَيْءٍ فَهُوَ يُخْلِفُهُ. You don't spend anything except that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to replace it. So we're going through, on top of our concern and uncertainty, we're going through a lot of economic hardships, financial hardships. People are losing their jobs. People are worried about their investments, about their companies, their businesses. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that anything that you spend, He is going to replace. It might not be immediately. It might take a few years, to get ourselves back on track. It took the companions about 6 years before they were economically and financially stable after the hijrah. But in the end, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is promising us anything that you lost during this time, although it might seem irreplaceable, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is able to do all things. And in a hadith narrated by Muslim, Salama radiallahu anha says that she heard the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam say, مَا مِن مُسْلِمٍ تُصِيبُهُ مُصِيبَةٌ فَيَقُولُ مَا أَمَرَهُ اللَّهُ إِنَّا لِلَّهِ وَإِنَّا إِلَيْهِ رَاجِعُونَ اللهم اجرني في مصيبتي واخلفني خيرا منها إلا أخلف الله له خيرا منها. Salama radiallahu anha says that she heard the Prophet ﷺ say something, but to give a little bit more depth to the context, or by adding context to this, Salama lost her husband Abu Salama, and she loved Abu Salama. She loved him and adored him, and she lost him. So the Prophet ﷺ, seeing her grief and her sorrow, told her to say Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi, to say this dua. So she said it, and the Prophet ﷺ said that if you say this dua, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will replace you with something better. And she said, who is better than Abu Salam? And then she said, it wasn't but a few days later the Prophet ﷺ came to me and asked for my hand in marriage. Everything can be replaced. And if someone loses a loved one, and that can very much happen, and it is happening. If someone loses a loved one, yeah, of course, they're not going to be replaced in this life. But at least, as we will get to in a moment, we will be reassured that the person dies with the reward of a martyr, and that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave them a very massive reward, and we will meet them again in the next life. So it was replaced in a way. So make this dua whenever you're feeling the burden and the hardship and the struggle of our current situation. Then say, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Allahumma junni fi musibati wa khulufni khayran minha. Allahumma ameen. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, allow us to get through this and to replace what we lost with something better. Ameen. So that is the second gift, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala replaces anything that we lost with something better. And by the way, we lost a lot of things in terms of our, freedom. Allah will replace that. In terms of our, the fun that we were planning on having. A lot of people, they lost their spring break, those who are in college and whatnot. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will replace all of this sooner or later. Doesn't mean immediately as soon as we exit our doors, our homes, and we go back to our daily routines, butterflies are going to be outside and birds are chirping. Not necessarily, but it will come eventually. And when it comes, it's just that much more beautiful. The third gift, and the final one, is the gift of reward, ajr. Reward that will be with us for eternity. Remember, when we're talking about reward, ajr here, we're talking about something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is writing for us that will last for us or with us for eternity. And to give one example, very simple example, those who say Subhanallah, Alhamdulillah, La ilaha illallah, Allahu Akbar, the Prophet ﷺ says that with each tasbihah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala plants for the person a tree or something in paradise. Now imagine a tree in paradise. A tree in paradise is described by the Prophet ﷺ as the shade is so large it would take a skilled rider of a horse 70 years to cross. That is a tree in paradise. That is a tree that you get for saying Subhanallah. It takes less than a second to do that. Now that tree is offering its fruits. It's offering its beauty. It's expanding the person's land. And every week, when we go and we visit Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and Allah unveils Himself, and the beauty, the rays of His beauty touch everything. Everything becomes more beautiful. So every week minimum, the person's place in paradise, his things in paradise continue to grow, to become more blessed, to become more beautiful for eternity. So what we have on day one in paradise, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us among the people of paradise, what we have on day one is very different than what we'll have on day 1 million, or year 1 million, or year 1 billion. It'll be so much more. So we're talking about something very, very beautiful, very important, that we are always increasing our reward. Now there is the general type of reward that we give for our patients, and there's also a specific reward for the plague itself. In a hadith narrated by Muslim, by Bukhari, rahimahullah ta'ala, Aisha radiallahu anha asked the Prophet ﷺ about the ta'un. Ta'un is a plague. فقال إنه كان عذابا I'm sorry, there's a misprint here. It's a كان عذابا يصيبه الله على من يشاء فجعله الله رحمة للمؤمنين فليس من عبد يقع الطاعون فيمكث في بلده صابرا يعلم أنه لن يصيبه إلا ما كتب الله له إلا كان له أجر شهيد. This is a powerful hadith, and I hope after this you will really contemplate and reflect on it, because it really, if you can internalize this hadith, it will flip the darkness of our current times into a garden and beauty. Aisha radiallahu anha says that she asked the Prophet ﷺ about the ta'un, and he said that it was a punishment Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would afflict people amongst whom He wills in the past. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allowed it to remain as a mercy for the believers. What is that mercy? So no believer goes through a plague, is in a place where a plague is spreading or a virus is spreading, and that person stays in their town, meaning they don't leave their town patiently. They stay with patience, knowing that nothing will afflict them except what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has written for them, except that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give them the reward of a martyr, a shaheed, a martyr. Imagine when you look at the verses of those who, the reward of martyrs in the Quran, Surah Ali Imran, towards the end of Surah, the 3rd chapter. Look at them. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or the Prophet ﷺ, is saying that it is a mercy for the believers. What we are going through now is a mercy that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allows to happen quite rarely. It's rare that an epidemic like this happens in the world of Muslims, or around Muslims. It happened a few times in our history, but it's actually quite rare. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has chosen that we, Muslims, although we are very much undeserving of it, let me just make that clear, we're not deserving of it, but it just shows you Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's love and care for the believers, despite their shortcomings and their negligence. He is saying, the Prophet is saying that anyone who is dealing with a plague and they stay in their home, as we are quarantined and what we are doing, as the Imams have been telling the Muslim communities, this is what the Prophet ﷺ is teaching us. Stay home. This is part of the sunnah, part of the command of the Prophet ﷺ. So they stay and they are patient with what they are going through. And they are certain, they have the theology, the aqidah, that nothing will befall them except what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has written for them. If we can do that, 3 things that we need to do. Number 1, you need to have that patience. Right? Number 2, you need to be hopeful in the reward of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Be patient in our homes. We're not leaving. Be certain of the reward of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. as we are muhtasibeen in Ramadan, as the Prophet ﷺ says, من صام رمضان إيمانا واحتسابا غفر له ما تقدم من ذنبه. Whoever fasts Ramadan with iman, meaning believing that this is a command and obligation from Allah, and ihtisaban, with hope in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's reward, except that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will remove their sins and forgive them of their previous sins. Likewise, we need to do ihtisab in our current times. We need to look at our times as something Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has decreed for us, and therefore He meant something good for us, and we are seeking and hopeful in His reward. And number 3, we have the belief that nothing will befall us except what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has written for us. This doesn't mean we don't look at what medical experts are saying. That is part of the qadar of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But if we are alleviated, we're relieved from this, nothing harms us, that is from the decree of Allah. But if we are inflicted and infected by this virus, that is also the decree of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And when we know something is from Allah, and we know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the most merciful, He loves us so much, He means good for us, He wants good for us, He wants paradise for us, it just helps us understand and accept the situation. And in psychology, part of the process of healing is acceptance. You need to accept what is going on. You need to accept the reality. So if we can do these 3 things, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala writes them the reward of a shaheed. Now, those who are infected and die because of it, now they have the highest level in this regard. Those who are infected by it, but they don't die from it, they are a lower level. Those who are patient and they stay in their homes and they're not affected by it, they're at a lower level, but but all of them are categorized as having the reward of a shaheed. Now, wouldn't we want that? Isn't this 2 months, 2-3 months? Let's say it goes for a year. In the end, it's going to end. It's temporary. And most of us know, those who are a little bit older, they know how fast time goes. What is a year? It's very much nothing. So even if this were to last for a year and we get through it, we leave it with a treasure of reward, with an immense amount of reward that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us. He forced us to accept this. Imagine someone, a billionaire, coming to you and saying, I'm going to force you to accept $1 million. I'm forcing you to do this. You're going to accept this, whether you like it or not. We would say, of course we like it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed us with a great blessing, immense amount of reward. And this hadith is enough for us to say, Alhamdulillah, I accept what is going on. I am hopeful in what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is preparing for me and for us in our situation. So that, going back to Abdul Qadir Jilani's statement, that if we go through this, hopeful in what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala promises us, that is something that is raising our ranks. This hadith does that for us. So remember the reward of enduring this. It's almost as if, just like we say, someone who dies as a martyr, Allah has blessed them with something so unique. Allah has chosen them for this. Well, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chose us, chose this generation for this reward, for this virtue. And this is something that, is in our book of deeds. And we will reap the rewards of that in this life and the next life, inshaAllah. Likewise, the reward for patience. We went through some of that in the first gift, but to continue and go a little bit deeper, the reward for patience. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Wallahu yuhibbus sabirin. Allah loves those who are patient. This is getting us the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, we all love someone. And the more we love that person, the more we want to do for that person. The nearer we want that person to be to us. The more we wish to see that person thriving, happy, with a smile on their face. Imagine Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saying that I love you for your patience. And because you are being patient for what I have decreed, my reward to you is my love. As human beings, love is perhaps the most important emotion to us. It is the most beloved thing. It's the most beautiful feeling. Literally movies, tens of Hollywood movies revolve around love. Well, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that He's offering you love for your endurance and your patience. He puts us through something, and then because He wants to give us rewards, subhanAllah. In a hadith, it said that إِنَّ اللَّهَ إِذَا أَحَبَّ عَبْدًا دَعَا جِبْرِيلٌ إِنِّي أُحِبُّ فُلَانًا فَأَحِبُّوهُ فيحبه جبريل وأهل السماء ثم يوضع له القبول في الأرض وإذا أبغض الله عبدا دعا, until the end of the hadith. This hadith is narrated in Muslim. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves someone, He calls Jibreel alayhi salatu wasalam and says, "Oh Jibreel, I love so and so, so love him or her." And then Jibreel will love that person, and Jibreel will go to the heavens and say, "Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves so and so, so love him." And the people of the heavens will love that person until it continues to trickle down to the hearts of people, and it puts a type of love for that person, or people will begin to develop this type of acceptance of who that person is, love for that person. Now there's a few things we can kind of theorize here. Number one, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is putting you in a situation to be patient so that He loves you, so that other people love you more, so that Jibreel loves you, so that the people of heaven know who you are, so that they love you as well. And it puts the acceptance in the hearts of people, of mankind, the people of earth, Muslim and non. This can have major implications for the believers if they are patient in it. You know, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala develops this love, or we earn this love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for us, for the Muslims of our time, and that results in the acceptance of humanity, of believers, what do you think that's going to do to the world? What do you think that's going to do to mankind in general? How many people, because of this acceptance that's coming down from the heavens, because of Allah's love for you, for the believers of this time, how many people are going to enter Islam? How is that going to change the situation of believers all across the world? How is that going to relieve our brothers and sisters who are being oppressed and persecuted and thrown in concentration camps? What is the results going to be? This develops a type of excitement, a type of optimistic outlook for what's coming. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as we mentioned earlier, He brings these things down because there's a result that's going to happen. And anything that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to happen is always for the better. And in another hadith, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Hadith Qudsi, "Inna man istaslama liqada'i wa radiya bihukmi wa sabara ala bala'i ba'athtuhu yawm al-qiyamati ma'a siddiqin." And this hadith, it's not as strong. However, the meaning, no doubt, on par with what we know. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Hadith Qudsi, says that whoever submits to my qada, my rulings, my halal and my haram, and is pleased with my judgment, with my qadar, what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decrees for us, and is patient for what I have tested them with, I will resurrect them on the day of judgment with the siddiqeen, with those who have reached a level of acceptance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, of truthfulness and honesty of their iman and their claim that there is none worthy of worship except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And in another hadith narrated by Muslim, the Prophet ﷺ says, "Ajaban li amri al-mu'min, inna amrahu kullahu khayr, wa laysa dhalika illa lil-mu'min. إن أصابته سراء شكر فكان خيرا له وإن أصابته ضراء صبر فكان خيرا له." The situation of the believer is always good for them, and this is only attainable by the believer. If ease befalls them, a fortune befalls them, and they are grateful to Allah, that is better for them. And if a hardship befalls them, and they are patient, that is better for them. There's a lot to say here as well, and perhaps this requires its own talk. But to kind of paraphrase here, we as believers, our mission in life, our purpose in life is the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to be close to Allah, paradise. And our ability to live by that and our ability to work towards that is irrespective of our particular context. Meaning, if we are going through ease, there is a way of fulfilling our purpose and our goal through that ease. And if we are going through a hardship, there is a way to reach our goal and achieve, to live our purpose and achieve our goal through that hardship. Why? Because there's always a way of worshiping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And something interesting is that when we go through a unique situation like our current pandemic, it introduces certain concepts to our minds. It teaches us about Allah in ways that without it we would never have concluded or come to. Meaning this is a type of opportunity that we wouldn't really gain, or the benefits of it wouldn't come about except through it. We are seeing how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala works in a manner that, it's really, subhanAllah, how He brought humanity to their knees. The greatest and strongest countries of our times, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has exposed so many of their weaknesses. He exposed to the world how weak human beings truly are. Even though when we look at the systems, when we look at the resources, we say, it's impenetrable. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brought the world down with the same exact thing. An invisible, small thing that infects the body without us even knowing. Excuse me, I'm sorry. And finally, the last thing I'd like to mention is that we continue to get the reward of what we used to do. Anas radiallahu anhu narrates that the Prophet ﷺ said, إِذَا ابْتَلَى اللَّهُ الْعَبْدَ الْمُسْلِمِ بِبَلَاءٍ فِي جَسَدِهِ قال الله اكتب له عمله الصالح الذي كان يعمله فإن شفاه غسله وطهره وإن قبضه غسله وطهره وإن قبضه غفر له ورحمه. The Prophet ﷺ is saying that if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tests a person in their body, meaning He puts them through an illness, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, continue to write their deeds that they used to do when they were healthy. Meaning, those who used to go to the masjid for Fajr and Isha prayer, Jum'ah prayer, but they're no longer able to because they are ill, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, recognizing that there is something outside of their control that's preventing them from continuing to do these things, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, out of His generosity and graciousness, says, continue to write those deeds even though he is or she is not doing them. Why? Because there's something hindering them from that. We are being hindered. We are being prevented from doing our good deeds that we used to do. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to continue to write them for us because we are forced not to do them anymore. And on top of that, He's giving us the reward which we mentioned throughout this talk. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is doubling our reward. And I expect, Allah ta'ala alam, after this, the attendance in masajid is going to increase. I'm not talking about massive increase, but it's going to increase. And the more people who attend the masjid in prayers, it increases the reward of that congregation. So it's going to also make up for what we lost as well. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving us triple the reward of what we would have been doing without this. Look at the generosity of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is how we should truly approach all situations in life, whether it's unique like this or it's something else. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, through events, shows us who He is. Through the coronavirus, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this pandemic, He is showing us He is Al-Qahir Al-Qahhar, the one who subdues people, the one who causes people to submit, and shows that He is the one in authority, not anyone else. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is showing us His mercy to humanity. Allah is showing us His generosity. He's showing us that He cares about what goes on in the world. That He sees what's going on. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala isn't just above His throne looking down and saying, do whatever you want to do, I'm really out of this. He's showing us that He is here. He is in control. Everything that has been happening, all the injustices that have been going on before, Allah has allowed it to happen for a reason. And this comes and shows us that He is, subhanahu wa ta'ala, in control of all that goes on. Whether we recognize the wisdoms or not, this is an opportunity. It is a gift for the believers. If we accept the gift of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not only will it ease our minds and our hearts, not only will it give us the guidance on how to deal with our situation, how to utilize it in a way to where it becomes a garden that remains with us for the rest of our lives, and it will be reward for us in the next life. It will also increase our ranks. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help us get through this, to help us appreciate these hadith and the hadith and these verses. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help us be patient, to fill our hearts with the patience, to be among those who rise in this situation instead of falling. وصلى الله على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين.